Hi there, I think we're live on WordSesh. My name is Lisa Sabin-Wilson, and I am joined today by John James Jacoby. Hi, John.
Hi, Lisa. I'm so happy to be backseat presenting with you today.
Presenting. You know, that brings up an interesting story that I could start before I talk about using BuddyPress to power intranets on the web. So last year for WordCamp Grand Rapids, was it? John needed a ride home. So we needed, we live in the same area, kind of the Milwaukee, Wisconsin area. And I happened to drive to Grand Rapids, so I nicely, generously offered to give John, right?
It was very nice. It was very generous of you.
It was, and you know, I've known John for several years, so I thought he's going to be really good road company, and we could talk about things like BuddyPress and BBPress and other things that we have in common, Wisconsin weather. And it turns out that what I didn't know about John, and this is a little known fact that I'm going to share with WordSesh today, is that John is a horrible passenger in a car.
I'm not that bad. I don't think I'm that bad.
No, you even said that you were horrible. Like, horrible.
Well, it's because I enjoy driving. I'm passionate about cars and driving. So
The entire time that I was driving John home very nicely from Grand Rapids, it was a constant critique, driving review, as it were.
it was a positive feedback. Positive. No, I was kind of. I guess I was probably being a little shit. Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah, there was nothing positive about it. So when it became clear that I was going to do a BuddyPress talk today, and J-Trip was like, "Hey, I would love to crash your party," we decided that today John is my passenger presenter. And when he was asking about what he could maybe add to my talk, I said, just pretend that you're in the passenger seat of my car on Highway 94 in Chicago on the way to Milwaukee, and feel free to just interject and say whatever you want.
And to redeem myself, I offered to mute myself for 45 minutes worth of her WordSesh, but she appreciated my feedback so much the first time that she figured she'd bring me in a second time for this session also.
You won't mute yourself because you can't help yourself. So
okay, well, I'm gonna mute myself over here, and then if I can help, I will.
In all seriousness, John, it's a pleasure to have you on my talk today about BuddyPress, and it's actually an honor to have the main developer for BuddyPress kind of featured on my talk with BuddyPress. So to that end, I would like to get started. So like I said, my name is Lisa Sabin-Wilson. I'm the co-owner of Web Dev Studios, where we are doing a lot of BuddyPress work for clients. And we're creating solutions for intranets, for business and government. This is not an overly technical talk, really, but more of a showcase of the work that we've done over the years. And hopefully it will give you some ideas on how to craft solutions for yourself or your clients. And I also want to give the disclaimer that these are WordPress plus BuddyPress powered projects, and that we use WordPress and BuddyPress as the foundation, and that some of the extended features that you see do require other plugins to be added, or they are a result of hours of custom development work, and I'll kind of point that out as we go. So to get started, I do have some slides that I want to share. Let's see, I think, can you see my slides?
Yep, I can see them just fine.
Okay, great. So BuddyPress powered intranets is what I'm talking about today. And most people in the chat today and on WordSesh today know, but as a good reminder, BuddyPress is a plugin that adds features to extend WordPress core. It's a powerful social networking platform. So you can think of it as kind of a social network in a box, including all of the features that you are accustomed to with social communities, like user profiles, friends, and groups, and activity streams. All of those are packaged in the BuddyPress plugin. Using BuddyPress, users can log in, register for it, and create their own profile. What you're looking at here on the screen is my profile on buddypress.org. So if you're interested in checking out the BuddyPress platform and how it works on the front end with the different features and components, You can go to BuddyPress.org and create a profile there. This happens to be mine. You can upload your own photo, avatar, include a biography and links to other profile information. And the administrator, the owner of the site, can create custom profile fields to include. So you see here on my profile on BuddyPress.org, there's a lot of information. There's my name, there's a little bio about me, my website, my location, where I work, what my title is, my interests, all of those things. Those are custom profile fields that admins can create for users, which I'll go into in a little bit. Creating friends in a community. So users can create friendships with other users within the community. They can find them using a members directory. And once they found them, they can send a friendship request to connect with them. Once they're friends, they can send private messages back and forth as kind of a little internal email system, and view friends' activity in the community to keep up with what people are doing. To the left, you're looking at a screenshot of a project that we did. This is the members directory in a BuddyPress installation. We changed it from members to colleagues, which is something that you can do. You can change the labels in BuddyPress to make it be what you want it to be. So here, they're colleagues instead of members or friends. Users can also create groups in BuddyPress if that is a component that you're interested in, and then invite other users and their friends to participate in a group. Forums can be created within the group, and then users within that group can discuss whatever topics that are group related amongst one another, and all of that forum activity stays within the group. Photo galleries can be created using a plugin, and then you can view an aggregate stream of group activity. So that's what you're looking at on the left. This is a group in a community, and the group is called History, and it's a group dedicated to kind of a generalized feel of history. On the left, you can see who the group admins are and who the group members are. And on the right, you see that there's a kind of an aggregate stream of activity. So who's joined the group, new posts and status updates that are made to the group, etc. Going back on user profiles a little bit, I had talked about the different profiles that can be created and how an admin can create user profiles in, my brother's calling me. Here we go. User profiles for custom display. So what you're looking at here is kind of the default backend where you can manage profile fields. And this is what it looks like on installation with BuddyPress. So the default view just has the name, which is required. That's always a required field. But admins of the site can add new fields. So this is what the screen looks like if you would like to add a new field. So you can toggle the field requirements to make it a required field or not a required field. And then there are different field types that you can use, like checkboxes and radio buttons and date pickers and text boxes and things like that to really create the type of field that you need. So like if you're creating a bio field for a user, asking them to fill out like a short bio, you might, pick a text box instead of, like one single line of text. And then you can toggle visibility over on the right. So you can say that this field and the data from this field is visible to everybody, or only visible to me, or all members, or just my friends. And then as the administrator, you can say whether or not the members are able to change that field, or if it's a default field that's always visible at the time. How am I doing, John?
Very good so far, Lisa.
You have anything to add?
Am
I going too fast? Am I
No. Hey now.
Just checking.
No, your pace and speed is perfect, Lisa. It's very good. I was going to add that the extended profiles is one of my favorite components because the profile fields that come in WordPress for a user are pretty antiquated and not super flexible. So one of the places that I think most WordPress sites that do emphasize what a post author is, or what it represents, or who the members of the site are, uh, would benefit pretty hugely from having the extended profiles component turned on, even by itself, um, just to have a place to store a lot of that data, and specifically for intranets, right? To your point, where a lot of the data for the employees or individuals or consultants or whomever that are part of an organization, uh, being able to define the fields that are the most useful for your group, for your audience, for your employees, what have you, uh, is pretty critical, right? I know at Automatic we would store all sorts of different stuff in there that would be useful for event planning or for emergency contact information if something happens at an event, like has been known to occur, uh, or if just having like meal preferences or things like that. Like it's just nice to be able to have the flexibility to store whatever kind of arbitrary data about a user, a member, an employee, a contractor that you might need. So the extended profiles fields component is one of my favorites.
Mine as well. We did I did a site several years back, which was like a foodie site for people that enjoyed cooking and kind of geeked out over the whole kitchen thing. So the membership profiles had profile fields in there, like, you know, your favorite cocktail and your favorite type of recipe, favorite celebrity chef, things like that. So you can really gear the custom profile fields to fit your community, which is a really nice feature to be able to have, especially if your community is a very specific topic, like, you know, on a particular entertainer or food or wine or things like that. You can really gear those profile fields to match your community. And the really nice thing about it, and I'm just going to go back, there we go. The nice thing about this as well is that the data that is placed in the profile field, so the answers that the user gives, are clickable, right? So if you click on, for instance, in BuddyPress.org, I'm assuming, and John, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if I click on my company title, Web Dev Studios, I should be able to find other users within the community that have that same meta in their profile as well. So
Yep, that's exactly right.
yeah, so if my partner, Brad Williams, for example, has a profile on BuddyPress.org, I should be able to see that. You know, when I click Web Dev Studios title, I should be able to find Brad in the BuddyPress.org website. That's nice.
And then last year, Brad actually helped build out one of our newest field types, specifically for URLs. So, and in the process of doing that, Paul Gibbs refactored some of the individual profile fields themselves, and then the Underhood API to make adding or sort of registering new profile fields a little bit easier. And we have a few tickets in our development tracker for some unique handling of some HTML5 fields, and then some fields that we know come up a lot, like addresses and stuff, that are now sort of on the horizon, or a little bit more feasible than they were in previous releases of BuddyPress.
Nice. It's really good that BuddyPress has a growing developer community. Not as big.
Help a lot.
Not as big as WordPress.org, maybe. But
no, certainly not. Certainly not.
Yeah. Brad Williams is a helpful guy, and he's a pretty decent passenger seat driver.
Yeah, I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah,
he's quite handsome also, and very dashing.
I wouldn't go that far, but okay. So, getting back to BuddyPress powered intranets. I guess I didn't have to go all the way back to the beginning of my slide, because here's a big version of my member profile with all of those, all that data on there that is collected when a user edits their profile. These are all of the custom profile fields that John or whoever built the BuddyPress.org site has provided for me to fill out. So kind of a nice feature. So the really super nice thing about BuddyPress that I like the most is that there are several components that are available to use, and you can take what you need and leave the rest. Only use what you need to meet your goals. So what you see in the screenshot here on the right, the checked items are what's default on installation. So when you install BuddyPress, extended profiles, account settings, activity streams, and notifications are checked by default. You can select anything that you need. You can activate the friend connections or private messaging, user groups, site tracking, which will add activity from new posts and comments from your WordPress into the BuddyPress activity stream. Cool.
Yep.
And maybe if you don't need some of these features right away, you don't have to activate them. You just leave them unchecked and they're not in use on your site. But if you want to come back a year later and add something like user groups because now you have a need for it, you have the ability to do that. So it's kind of flexible in that regard. So yay, BuddyPress. So some examples I wanted to give of intranets that we are building and have built using WordPress and BuddyPress as a foundation. And intranets are really private networks for companies to communicate back and forth with whatever group they need to. And in the case of most of the intranets that I'm exploring today, these are all like company-based, company employee type intranets. So they're private networks that employees can log into and do different things. And all of this is powered by WordPress and BuddyPress and a handful of really cool plugins or custom development. This is work that we did for Starbucks. You can see it was training for their Barismo espresso machine. So at a very basic level, users, which are baristas in Starbucks world, can log in and create their profile. They can view the community activity in real time. They can see when new posts are created and see when new groups are created. They can update their status and even comment on status from other users. And it's basically built as an internal employee training and e-learning tool. When a barista logs in, they can upload their photo and fill out their profile, update their status, make friends in the community. Groups in this particular community are actually locations. So if you are a barista from Chicago, you can join the Chicago group and communicate and share information, tips, advice, resources with other baristas from Chicago and interact with them. There was a layer of e-learning that was built onto this as well, where the barista would log into the private network. They had videos that they could view. Once they were done viewing a video, they would take a quiz. And when they took the quiz, they could progress to the next video, but only if they earned a score of greater than 80% on their quiz. And their managers are able to log into this intranet too and see their different employees' progress through it. So if you are an employee who is consistently getting less than 10% on your quizzes, your manager will be like, we need to talk. Because I logged into this BuddyPress thing and found out that you're not doing so yeah. We also built in a calendar so that they can have like their events and training calendars, any educational calendars, and then also leaderboards as well. You could see over on the right, there's a leaderboard that tells the user that you've earned 55 points and you rank number 10 out of 895 possible baristas that are taking these. So it's really cool to be able to be involved in something like this, technologies like BuddyPress to make it happen. One of the other cool things I want feedback on, because I know you think this is cool. Oh, and this is, yeah, I didn't even really do this, but I did talk about it. The groups down on the bottom right, Canada, Chicago, Los Angeles, Manhattan, etc. Those are groups that the baristas are assigned to depending on where they work and live. And the custom development and existing plugins we added, like the quiz and leaderboards and badges, which aren't part of BuddyPress, but add enhancements to meet the goals of their intranet community. And when I talk about badges, I'm talking about badges, which you can find in the WordPress.org. It adds a achievement badging system onto your WordPress. And BuddyPress, you can easily create badges and set up achievements that users can use to complete and earn and then display on their profile pages and on leaderboards. So that's cool. So you can imagine a barista who, you know, logs in and creates their profile. They get the, you know, barista badge once they've completed their profile 100%. And then maybe if they've taken their first quiz, they can, you know, get a badge for being a junior barista. And then different badges for different things within the Starbucks site can be really fun. What do you think, John? I would like to be a Starbucks barista.
Starbucks is delicious, so that's one part of it. I think the fact that Starbucks is using it, I mean, the way that you guys have implemented it for them is right on. You know, they have a niche group of people that have a need to communicate back and forth with each other and around some sort of central goal. So you highlight and you emphasize each one of the individual components of BuddyPress in a really useful way to them, and they don't ever really need to know that it's BuddyPress or anything else powering it, right? So I think what you guys put together for them is a really classic case of using the foundational elements of BuddyPress really, really well, without having to do really a ton of customization. I mean, sure, it's a different theme, and you've added some of the LMS elements to it that are huge, obviously, but the fundamental parts of BuddyPress, the activity streams, the groups, individual profile fields, and everything is just they end up design elements for you at that point. So the Starbucks screenshots and how they use it, I think, are really, I think they're really fascinating, and you guys are, you know, uniquely qualified to show them off. So it's really, really cool.
Yeah, it was a really, really fun project to be a part of. Yeah, I think the important piece is that using BuddyPress as kind of that foundation gave us the ability to create that community feel, and then everything else that goes on top of it is just icing on the cake. But having BuddyPress there really solved, you know, 80% of the solution that we needed for that really integrated member directory, you know, communities kind of social network method that we needed to use, and the rest of it was a lot of fun to build on top of. So cool. The other thing that we're currently working on is a intranet for the National Park Service. If you're familiar with the national parks, they are spread across America from Florida to Alaska and Maine to Hawaii. And the national park employees rarely have the opportunity to meet one another in person and connect at all on a personal level to share resources and tips, tricks, and advice. And they usually hold all of their training sessions in Washington, D.C. So, like, the park ranger from Alaska never has the ability to come down to Washington, D.C. for the monthly training. So what they wanted to do was create and build some type of internal Facebook, is what they told us. You know, they really wanted an area for people to be able to connect with one another, share resources, to have the kind of overreaching National Park Service put resources in there. Once we started working with them, I was really interested to find that the National Park Service doesn't just have like park rangers and educators, but they've got archaeologists and paleontologists and really fascinating people in these great resources that they've curated now into what we call their kind of Cultural Resources Academy, and it's all internal. So just like with Starbucks, users are able to log in and create their profile, upload their photo, and then start creating groups in the community and connect with one another in ways that they weren't necessarily able to connect with before. And a lot of the information that they share internally is sensitive information. So it's not like they want to necessarily host something like this on Facebook. It was important for them to own the data on their own federal government mandated server setup. So they didn't want to look for an external kind of network in order to do this. So they came to us for a solution. They didn't necessarily know that they wanted BuddyPress and WordPress and all of that kind of cool stuff. But once they started describing what solution they wanted, it became clear to us that we could build this with this great technology that's already available. So now they're able to engage and connect with one another from all points on the map.
And they're able to do it in a way that they trust, right? Like they have a community of members and colleagues that that are all there for a specific reason to accomplish a very specific set of things and goals, and they know that whenever they communicate, they know in this place that it's going to be for this reason. Whereas if they were going to be using GroupMe or email or anything else, usually that conversation can degenerate very quickly, or people get excluded, or people miss some of the real time of something like Slack. Instead, they kind of have a more sophisticated sounding board for them to store all of their communication and back and forth. And I think that that's a big deal, right? It's kind of the way that Automatic worked with all of their P2s. I think that's the way that, a majority of the WordPress agencies that I have had a look inside of have some sort of internal communication tool also. So it ends up being a little bit of a no-brainer, right? To have some central place to have those communications live, and that isn't sort of the stereotypical email or I don't know, I guess really what do most companies have besides email, right? So
I mean, they can use,
cool.
there's a lot of tools out there to use, right? I mean, they can use Basecamp, for example, for collaboration or anything like that. But I think the overreaching goal here was that they needed to own their own data. It needed to be
exactly.
We talked about data portability amongst those systems, but that wasn't even important to them. What was important to them is that they had control over the environment. Of course, it's a government entity, so security is a big issue for them. So they needed control over that environment, and they wanted to own their own data. And with WordPress and BuddyPress, of course, that data is portable if they choose to go elsewhere. It's easily set up in a shared MySQL environment, so it was a perfect solution.
Yep, and people forget sometimes that MySQL is kind of the ultimate data portability, right? I mean, sure, we can build RESTful JSON APIs that turn these into real object models, and we can make them accessible to the web so that data can be moved easily in and out. But the one universal language that we can boil a lot of this stuff down to ends up being a language that is designed to structure queries for data, right?
Yeah.
So it is, we do benefit quite a bit from WordPress being MySQL in its core, right? So BuddyPress gets to leverage that very, very nicely also.
Yeah. A lot of what is also very common with these types of intranet portals is that we're also building that kind of single sign-on feature available to it. Like a lot of these places have their own API, have their own credentials that they want people to be able to use to log into. So we lock these things down to like .gov domains or nps.gov domains so that it really is truly only available to those people who have authorization to be there.
Yeah, and David Bissett mentioned too that BuddyPress is a pretty popular application for intranets, and the nature of it being an intranet means that it is intentionally private, right? It is not accessible to any other outside influence. So you being able to just show off some screenshots of how you've and Web Dev Studios has been able to implement some private and fairly cool BuddyPress installations for intranets is pretty sweet because it's kind of a secret look into something that you would never guess or otherwise have any access to. So it's very cool.
It's peek into a secret club. I did get permission to showcase these, by the way.
That's a good idea. That's good.
Thank you. Okay, so the next one that I have is one that we're currently working on right now. So the screenshots that you see are in development, which is why you see the familiar lorem ipsum Latin stuff in there. But this is Chaparral Energy, and they are the second largest energy company in the state of Oklahoma. And they came to us similarly to National Park Service. They didn't really know what they wanted to build this on, but what they knew is that they wanted to have a private intranet that functioned as a company directory. And when they started explaining everything that they needed and different things that they've investigated and looked into, again, it became clear that using WordPress and BuddyPress as the foundation for this kind of internal private social network amongst their employees and departments was the ideal solution to craft for them. So we are using BuddyPress to power a company directory for them. Groups in BuddyPress now are becoming their department. So each department within this company is a group in BuddyPress, and then employees who belong to that department, of course, can join those groups. And then from there, we're doing some custom development with this where departments can create and branch subgroups off from the main group. We've added in an events calendar so that everyone can keep track of company events. And we're also building a document management system for them for document sharing. And somebody somewhere said that it was a trimmed down version of SharePoint built with WordPress and BuddyPress. But the DMS, the document management system, is interesting because it really is a primary feature of their intranet, and it becomes a central repository for all documents across their intranet. So individual departments and sections will have their own repository of documents by displaying them with specific tags that are set for their department or group. Key features of that include putting that repository of documents in the BuddyPress group and department sites, and then there's meta that is included when the user is uploading the document, and that meta includes things like descriptions and tags and types and different meta fields that will be added as necessary, and then taxonomy tags, right, that will be used on documents to determine what sections they display in. So like visiting a site's document management system would only show documents tagged for that particular site or group, and documents uploaded to a specific group, for example, HR, will automatically be tagged with that group's document tag. And then using revision control in WordPress to track file changes, and then permissions for viewing and downloading documents can be done at the group level, user level, when documents are uploaded. So that's kind of an interesting approach to doing an intranet there instead of using like external document sharing. So kind of in a nutshell, at Chaparral Energy, the BuddyPress member directory becomes their internal employee directory. And BuddyPress group directory, of course, is their internal department directory. And all those directories are searchable and filterable. But we're also including, using the profile fields in WordPress, things like their title within the company, the department they work in, of course, their photo. And then there's also one specific meta field, if I can go back just one or two, just one, down there under the recognition on the bottom left of that grid where it says recognition. Dave, thank you for 12 years of Chaparral dedication and service. That's all meta. That can be built in as well to allow the site administrators to toggle different employees that can get recognition for things like years of service or employee of the month or whatever else you acknowledge employees for. And something like BadgeOS may become something that gets added onto this as a phase 2 to allow the employees to earn different badges within the company. And then kind of outside of WordPress, or outside of BuddyPress, but still an integral part of the intranet as a whole, using custom post types, we're building a jobs directory for them, bringing in like the local weather from using probably external API from Yahoo, perhaps. We haven't really decided what we're doing there yet. And then using the WordPress posting system as kind of a place for them to put internal company news and updates and things like that for employees to keep track of. And then notifications for emails for employees to get notified on group activity or friend activity and things like that. So all of it internal to Chaparral Energy, not something that's public facing, but still using a lot of different components with WordPress, existing plugins and BuddyPress on top of it. You can really build a really dynamic intranet. So that is, yeah, this would be this new hires kind of grid that you see here is kind of that BuddyPress members widget that will be refactored to show, you know, the newest employees, right, in the community as new hires instead of new members. It becomes new hires. And then this is kind of the overreaching look of what they're going to be. Across the top, you see like information and news, business operations, employee resources, support, directories, search. I had mentioned that we're adding in weather reports for the area, event calendars, stock tickers, and charts for company performance and progress. Document sharing, all of these tools together with WordPress and BuddyPress as the foundation really crafts a neat company intranet experience. So takeaways from today, if I have takeaways for you, is that you can use BuddyPress to add a simple layer of social networking to a WordPress site. If you just want that, you know, friends and activity and groups and things like that, you can just install BuddyPress. You could get it by searching in your dashboard for BuddyPress or go to buddypress.org and download it from there. But it's also being used, and we can extend it a great deal with existing plugins and custom development to support government and corporate business intranets, as well as public-facing social communities. So that's my talk in a nutshell. John, what do you think? Did I drive this presentation well?
You drove it very well. Good job, Lisa. I'm very proud of you and happy to have been along for the ride.
Am I a good driver?
You're an excellent driver. You're an excellent driver.
You're lying. You're lying.
No, not at all.
You're a good liar. So what do you have?
It also seems unlikely.
You must have some unique insights as the lead developer of BuddyPress to add on, like what you saw in my presentation today. Does any of it relate to features that might be?
Oh no, I think it's all relative. I think BuddyPress fits really nicely into intranets. At least it's very naturally, right? I think we have some questions in the live session. I haven't looked at them because I've been trying to keep myself muted and preventing myself from echoing. So if you want to grab some of those, we can go over those. But I think your slides and everything are super relevant because BuddyPress is all about niche communities, and what more obvious of a niche community do you have than people that are naturally already working together? So it makes absolutely perfect sense, and I think it's good to emphasize BuddyPress as being a thing that can power that, the same way that WordPress powers blogs or websites or anything else. I think it's something that people can immediately identify with. That does give BuddyPress a very comfortable home and solution versus it just being like it's a social networking tool plugin thing. Being able to show people you can use it to power this type of website provides much more context.
Yeah, and how cool is it? I mean, I know that Brian Messenlaner, one of my partners at WebDev, one of his favorite things to do when we go to Starbucks is to ask the baristas behind the counter, like, do you guys have this system where you have to log in and view videos and take quizzes? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, I feel like
that's awesome.
That's WordPress. Cool. That's BuddyPress. That's so cool to be able to say that. So questions. One of the top questions comes from Peter Chester. Hi, Peter. Good to see your avatar on WordSesh. His question about security, and maybe something, John, this is something you can speak on, but his question is do we have any security measures that we recommend for intranets beyond normal BuddyPress security? And before you answer that, I would just mention that intranets by nature are private, so we've got full control over who accesses it at the server level. But is there anything you would recommend just for WordPress and BuddyPress specifically for intranet security?
Not anything above and beyond making sure that the server that it's running on isn't directly accessible via the internet, and if it needs to be, to make sure that you're employing some sort of proxy or VPN or something to somehow tuck the server or the environment away so that the people that do need to access it remotely are doing so with some sort of through some sort of secure tunnel or with some sort of previously integrated authorization protocol, if I can be any more vague, I guess. But whatever it is, I think most of that happens outside of WordPress and BuddyPress. And I think one of the more obvious places that something like this would need some sort of locking down to double plus good, make sure that it doesn't leak out, is stuff like images and attachments and documentation, right? If you're uploading documents that might be potentially sensitive, if your WP content directory is potentially world readable and writable and leaking stuff out, that's a big deal, right? So there are some things that on a server configuration level and just on an access control level outside of BuddyPress and BBPress that are more suited for preventing unauthorized access to this kind of environment, and nothing really specifically inside of it that I can think would be too exclusive. I think the one thing that Lisa touched on that I say quite a bit is be sure to provide the right components for your intranet, right? If they all already know each other, you might not need the friends component, so turn it off, because what's the value in them adding each other as friends if they already know each other, right? I think that they used that uniquely within the walls of Automatic to say, like, we've met each other in person, versus it being like we are actually friendly together for one reason or another. So you could adapt the friends component to do something else, but you may not need private messages because why? You can email each other or whatever. You may not need groups because you will maybe only have 5 people working together, so groups don't really provide a whole lot. They fragment it further. So it does take a little bit of planning and architecture to make sure that you're not providing too big of a playground for too few people. But otherwise, yeah, I don't know. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think so. One of the next questions at the top of the list is about translating BuddyPress and using it in other languages. This question is specifically about Polish language. So does BuddyPress work in a Polish language without problems? And can you talk more about translating BuddyPress and how to do this? BuddyPress is available in what languages? How many do you think, John?
It's been a while since I've checked. I know that we had somewhere in the realm of about 20 or 24 different subdomains for different languages on BuddyPress.org, and if someone is actively interested in being the sort of liaison or representative or kind of owning those individual sites, would be awesome to have someone step up and do them. I think a few people have stepped up for French or Spanish or something else. I think we probably topped out at something like 14 complete translations, but I do not know them off the top of my head. And improvements to GlotPress and translate.wordpress.org and everything that are going in to WordPress.org this year, which I will try to be as much of a part of as I can, will hopefully enable future translations into many more languages. So sorry that I can't answer to that language specifically, but if there's anything that is preventing you from contributing, reach out and let me know so that we can try to break down those barriers.
Yeah, definitely. There is a BuddyPress file built right in. So what is it they say, John? Patch is welcome, right?
That is what they say.
That is what they say. All right. Let's see. How much time do we still have?
I think we got time for one more, Scott says.
Yep, one more question. Let's see. What is, and this is going to be a question for you, John, so my passenger presenter, what is the future of BuddyPress? Where do you see it going?
Oh,
I know
wow.
you talked a little bit about this in your fireside.
A little bit. In a nutshell, I would like to see more administrative functionality, better integration with WordPress core themes, even backdating to 2010, 11, 12, 13, and 14. So you get a nicer experience once you activate BuddyPress. It looks and feels like it belongs there a little bit better, because right now it isn't really so great. And then there's some other neat stuff kind of in the pipeline. We definitely are working towards having an underlying API for attachments and media to start having a built-in solution for other photo galleries and things to build off of. And privacy controls, like a little bit more fine-grained, always come through the pipeline a little bit as common requests. So there are lots of little things that have been ongoing that have been architecturally difficult to try and make decisions about for the entire BuddyPress community that we're starting to make some headway on.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I know that I've been a BuddyPress user. Well, I wrote BuddyPress for Dummies back in 2008. God, 2008.
That's wild.
Which, if anybody goes to Amazon to look for BuddyPress for Dummies right now, don't buy it because it hasn't been updated since 2008, and you can only imagine the mess that book is right now.
You could buy it if you want like the history of BuddyPress. If you want to see where it's come from and where it is, totally buy it for just the history lesson for sure.
BuddyPress history for Dummies. But what I've noticed over those years since 2008 is that BuddyPress has kind of gone through so many different, like, huge cycles of development that plugins that are still like hanging out there for BuddyPress that sound like they do really cool things really don't work with BuddyPress at all. Do you know that if in the .org repository, have those plugins been flagged? Like, this one is pre-2009, don't use it, you know, I mean, because they're still hanging out there. And a lot of things that I hear from users is that existing plugins for BuddyPress are unreliable at best because they are so legacy.
Yeah, the biggest deal I think is theme compatibility. A lot of the times there'll be components that do introduce relatively large pieces of functionality like event calendars or LMSs or something where the old school way of building a BuddyPress component meant literally polluting your theme with a bunch of other template parts and not really having any alternatives. So the plugins themselves probably still function and work the way that they did in terms of backwards compatibility and stuff there, but the ease of use of just activating it and having all of those template parts fall into place may not be there, right? In the early days, and this is somewhat tangential, but still I think applies, is we were fairly lucky and liberal with our deprecating of components. We had a component called the wire, which was basically a flat activity stream. We had something called BP status that was really only for status updates. And those two components were completely yanked out of BuddyPress and no longer supported. And we may even do something similar with BP forums eventually because BBPress has absorbed all of that functionality. So we silently deprecate it and make it invisible, but there's no reason for any of that code to really exist there anymore other than just supporting 4 or 5-year-old software at this point. So we've cut the time.
I'm getting poked that we have to stop.
Yeah. So okay. So thank you all.
I don't stop you from driving this. John, you can sit in your seat anytime. I would be happy to.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Driving Mr. Jacoby. I would be happy to anytime. Thanks to WordSesh for hosting this talk. It's always fun to talk about BuddyPress. John, thank you very, very much for joining me today. And Merry Christmas, everybody, and have a safe and happy holidays.
Thanks for letting me crash and everything Lisa said. Thanks, y'all.
All right. Enjoy the rest of WordSesh. Bye.